Hi, welcome to another gun room video. This one is about my FX DRS. Not shot it for a few weeks, but I remember last time I did use it, I filled it up to 230 bar, which I normally run it at. Just gone to get it out this morning to have a bit of a plink in the back garden on the range. Only 100 bar in the air cylinder, and I'm thinking, oh no. If you can see it from there, we've got the telltale signs of moisture dropping down the plenum there on both sides. So that indicates that's probably where the air's leaking from. It's bringing out a little bit of silicone oil, a bit of moisture, and leaking down there. I've had trouble with this ever since I've put this super high power plenum on there. And it's not fitted for any extra power, it's just done for an extra plenum so I can lower the spring tension because it's running at low pressure here and get a lot more shot count out of it. But I bought it off of eBay rather than buying it from a proper recognised FX dealer. Someone's obviously selling it for a reason, and I think there's a problem with it because where the O-rings goes in, the groove is very, very close to another hole, and the O-ring just keeps popping out. And I've got a horrible feeling that's what it's done again. So we'll just strip it down, have a look. Toyed me the idea of just doing away with it and putting the standard one back on, but what I'm probably going to have to do is get this machined and make a bit more room for the O-ring. But it might not be that, but we'll have a look. So first of all, I'm going to whip the scope and the stock off it. I don't really want to risk damaging them. And it's easier to work on when I ain't got them bits on there. Out of the way. I'm to pull the dust cover out, which I always forget, then wonder why the stock won't come off. It does make it a little bit more difficult to work on having this big hanging out the bottom. It does come apart nice and easy. Literally that one screw, and that's it. Then the action should come out nice and easy. Let's put the expensive bit, the walnut stock over here out of the way so I don't damage that. Yeah, and straight away you can see there's a lot of moisture around there and silicone oil both sides, so I'm pretty sure that's where that's leaking from. What I might do, just get a little bit of silicone oil, run it along that seam, see if we can see any bubbles. Yeah, sure enough, if you can see that on camera, probably won't get this side of the light, might be easy to see. It is bubbling along that edge. So that's where it's leaking from yet again. You think you buy an expensive gun, you wouldn't get these sort of problems, but happens to all of them. Just seems to happen to me more often with my more expensive guns than more cheaper guns. My SMK is very, very rarely ever an air leak. Take the magazine, find that at a safe distance. Right, to degas these, what I normally do is just loosen the gauge and let the air gradually build out. Got to be a little bit patient, don't loosen it too much, you'll end up with an air gauge stuck in your ceiling. And with this extended plenum as well, after the main air tube is drained of air, you've got to fire it quite a few times actually to drain the air out that's still stuck in the plenum. Yeah, we're down to 50 bar already. Once the air's completely stopped leaking out there, what I do, I take the gauge completely out. And I just fire a few shots to drain off any residual air that's inside there. Right, that's down to 0. Always keep my hand over the top just in case a little bit dusty, so I pop it up in the air. There we go. You can actually see the air bubbling along there quite a lot now, so still a fair bit of pressure still actually inside the plenum. That's what we do now, we just fire it out off. Yep, that seems to have gone. And then whip the plenum off. Put the next size down Allen key. Which is obviously quite deep down inside there now. There's one of the bolts. That should be all 4 bolts undone. Should be able to lift that up. And what we can actually see, if I tip the bolts out, you know, you're going to drop it. That's the main air hole going into the plenum. You can see one of these are obviously where they've machined it out and they've put caps back in there to afterwards, but there's hardly any, less than probably 0.5 millimetre between that hole and the edge of the recess where this has been cut. So I think that's probably a machining error. And you can also see it on the actual gun where the O-ring is. There's hardly any room from that O-ring to where that aperture is there. Pretty difficult to see on camera and there's no zoom on that thing. But I think what I have to do is have that face machined off, and that will then get rid of some of that chamfer around that hole. I'd probably need, like, if I had 1 millimetre there, I'd be happy, but it's about 0.5 mil there. And over time the O-ring just says, you know what, I've had enough of this, and just pops a little tiny bit, not a lot, but just enough so it weeps out of there. That's annoying really. It wasn't a cheap thing, it was £100. So you expect it to be better than that, but I did buy it off of eBay. It was listed as new, but it's difficult sometimes. I just had someone else fitted this to a gun, realised it was leaking, and that's why I sold it on eBay. Also the little, that's where the air gauge would go to read your regulator pressure. The little rubber block from behind that screw was actually missing, so it was leaking from there as well when I got it. Should have sent it back, but like most things, I like to look at problems and try and sort it out. Last time I rebuilt this, I did put a very, very slightly thicker O-ring on there, but it's obviously just not enough, and it's just still weeping past it. You can see on there as well, from where the little recess is, where the O-ring sits, it's almost straight into that hole, so it was always going to leak. It's annoying really. You spend a lot of money on something like this. This is a £900 air gun. You don't expect these sort of problems. So I've got to make a decision now whether I give up on the high power plenum and just put the standard one back on, or whether I risk machining this. I've already not got to take a huge amount off to make it better. Obviously I've got no access to any engineering machinery anymore, so I don't work in that profession no more, but what I can do, what I've done before with these sort of things, you get a sheet of glass, get some sandpaper with memory paper on it, hold that down, and you can just almost make yourself like a linisher. Take a while. I can block the holes up in here with some cotton wool or some paper so none of the debris gets down, plus I'll blow it out of an airline anyway once I've finished machining it. Just try and get that little bit across there, just that little bit thicker, and hopefully that'll stop it leaking. But that's going to be another video. Annoying, but we can sort it. Thanks for watching.